Hi, Ali. Hi, everyone. We are here today to discuss very important and quite a difficult topic uh, of the unique challenges faced by neurodivergent people, neurodivergent women regarding violence and abuse. And what made us decide to discuss this topic is our similar experience when it comes to being a victim of such behavior. And I think we know that it's not only us. That's why we decided to discuss victimization for ADHD and autism people. So I am Justy Kos. With me is Ali O'Connell. We are both ADHD coaches. And Ali, I would like to ask you the first question. Why
Yes.
do you think, or why do you know, are autistic and ADHD women more vulnerable to violence than neurotypical women?
In looking at the statistics, they are quite eye-opening. According to a large study that was recently done in France, 9 out of 10 autistic women have experienced sexual violence.
Mhm.
And most of the violence that they started experiencing started at a young age. And they reported they felt unable to report. Um, and studies also showed that they were 3 times more likely to be selected by offenders. And in terms of ADHD women, they were twice as likely to be victimized, which is really eye-opening. And for me, unfortunately, yeah, I did experience some unfortunate behavior starting when I was a child, and it was frightening. And I feel like kind of the broad reason, and we'll continue to talk about this further, is ADHD and autistic women from a young age are kind of used to not trusting the system, and we are more socialized to not express when things are painful
Mm,
because we tend to be more sensory sensitive as well. So we're used to kind of social interactions being painful for a variety of reasons. So it's harder for us to pick up on the nuances if we're being harassed. Also, we have a harder time picking up and recognizing social cues. We want so badly just to fit in with everyone else that we're
mm,
kind of more paying attention to ourselves than asking like, hey, is this unusual behavior? Am I uncomfortable? Because we're so used to just overriding it,
mm.
unfortunately.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you said so much regarding this topic, and there are so many factors why we're more vulnerable to such
Yeah.
behaviors. And while we're talking about it, it makes me sort of sad
Yeah.
because also because of my own experience, and I recall all that you said that was in me, which didn't help
Yeah.
uh, to stop the abuse. But you sort of mentioned that, but could you explain the concept of masking and how it contributes to our vulnerability?
So with masking, it means that we are, and I remember masking as early as probably in kindergarten or first grade, and it's looking around you and realizing, hey, I'm different, and you start to try to act in a natural way, and you get punished for it, or kids kind of alienate you, and then you're like, okay, I have to act like those around me, even if it's really uncomfortable. And I don't know
Mm,
why the other kids seem to be having a good time on this loud playground, but it feels painful to me, or other people can jump into a conversation and I just feel totally confused. So you're kind of used to I grew up kind of mimicking people. I mean, it's interesting. A lot of autistic women, are special interests end up being people. Like I studied mental health, and a lot of autistic women, we do tend to study people more. And they say men kind of pick up more math and science, but because our societal pressure to fit in is so bad, we become experts at studying people.
And
Um,
reading what they expect from us.
yeah, and that leads to, you know, I you're not really trusting yourself. You so want to make the other person comfortable and be normal. And I definitely can look back at conversations growing up and like in college where I'm talking to someone and then I realized later, like, hey, that was really like I remember one really uncomfortable incident in an airport, where I sat next to a guy on a plane. And I thought, oh, I'm just trying to make conversation. That's normal. You should talk to the person next to you. And then a couple questions in, I was like, wow, he's a total creep. Like he is asking very
Yeah,
personal information. But I was
yeah,
so I was trying to mask and be normal. And I'm like, normal people talk to the people next to them that
yeah.
I was so focused on masking that I wasn't picking up or listening to any of the signals in my mind and body
The
that,
red
oh, something
flags.
is not
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, uh, there is also a problem when it comes to neurodivergent women and abuse
Yeah.
or victimization, that we tend not to seek help very often.
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
have any ideas why is it so?
I have to think so because from a young age, many of us, unfortunately, were failed by the systems that were supposed to protect us.
Mm,
And, we don't act, the way we process things is different. So we may act to sadness or anger in a different way where we're not going to look like the typical, we may go for help and people are like, oh, like you're not acting or
yeah,
like other victims or because we communicate differently, like
we can
other
be
people
not
have a hard
taken
time,
seriously.
yeah, understanding us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I also thought it's a little bit jumping back, but I thought that also for women with autism and ADHD, our sense of self-worth is much lower.
Oh, yeah.
And we can think that by fitting in or by letting the person who doesn't want good for us do what they do, that we don't have this self-worth to say no, to set the boundary, to say I have to protect myself. I deserve this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think,
No,
yeah.
it's very true.
Yeah. What do you think about sex education and the importance of it for all the women, but especially neurodivergent women?
I think it's really important because, yeah, studies show that we're less likely to receive that type of education. And for us, we have a harder time like with saying no. And I remember, this is a story I feel comfortable telling, but, I was in college and looking back, I was naive, but this guy from my class who I've been working with invited me over to his house. And like,
Mm.
I I didn't understand that
It's an
he didn't
invitation
invite me
for
to watch a
sex.
movie.
Yeah.
I was like, I took it very literally and I was like, okay. And then I went into his house and the first thing he showed me was his bedroom. And I was like, nothing
Then you
happened.
got it. Yeah.
But I felt like really, and I talked to my friend and she's like, yeah, you never go to the guy's house on the first date. But like, I was just like very innocent
Mm.
in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, in our society, like people like when dating are not direct or they may take advantage of it because I'm sure, like I didn't understand the guy invited me to his house was and me saying yes was him thinking, "Oh, she's gonna have sex with me." And that didn't happen, but like I'm like thank God it didn't, but I think how many girls unfortunately
Don't say
uh,
no.
were in a word yeah, it was like it felt societally pressured or unfortunately like I think our society yeah, and this is a hard one for me, but it's like because people are so uncomfortable talking about consent,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like how, yeah, because I wasn't sat down and been like, okay, this is what it, I feel like when you're dating, guys will never be direct about what they want, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like another story in college to bring back my trauma. I was in a sorority, and this guy, I think had taken me out on 3 dates, but he wanted to get physical with me, but of course I wasn't like, I was like, I'm getting to know you. And he'd spent
Mm.
money on me, and then he complained to my friend and said, I'm doing everything right. Like, basically, why isn't Elyse putting out? And then she told me, and I was like, yeah, it's really disgusting. I'm just getting to know him. And she was like, Elyse, you have to act like you're a big girl. Like, yeah, people are gonna want to get physical with you on dates. And I remember feeling like really betrayed by that and thinking like,
Mm.
yeah, a lot of autistic women, a lot of autistic and ADHD women wanting to fit in probably feel like maybe they have to have sex earlier than they feel comfortable with, or with people they don't feel comfortable with because it's a societal norm, because
Yeah.
that's what you see in
Yeah.
TV shows.
Yeah. I'm really glad you said that to him. I'm
Yeah.
getting to know you. This is important
Yeah.
to that you set your boundary.
Yeah.
And not everyone has the strength, as you said, to set this boundary. But I also think that it opens the completely new topic of ADHD women and autistic women and relationships in general. Because of such experience, traumatic experience that many of us
Yeah.
had, it can be difficult to trust. It can be difficult to trust someone who is actually wants good for us in the
Yeah.
future. And that's a very complex, I think, topic, and it's, as we both said, it's heavy to talk about it, especially that it's personal for you and for me as well. But focusing a little bit on the hope and the light in the dark tunnel, what advice would you give to friends, family members, and professionals on how to better support women like us?
And I feel like it's always kind of know that we won't maybe respond in the typical way that a neurotypical person does. And I feel like, we may not feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling. Like, there should be multiple ways of reporting. And like knowing that, knowing a little bit about ADHD autism and the challenges that we face, even like a surface knowledge, would be helpful, and being willing to learn. And
Mm,
it's hard because I think a lot of women that, you know, that experience victimization, and I think all women, I think everyone, it's hard to report. And I think for us, having difficulties with paperwork and like phone
yeah,
calls,
yeah.
it's like there's an organizational level to it as well. So it's like also, in situations, it's like, how do you, first of all, the emotional, dealing with the emotional stuff, but also dealing with the, what do you call it, cognitive difficulties of
Mm-hmm,
having to
mm-hmm.
call a phone tree and make a report and talk to someone. Like, that's a lot of steps that can be really overwhelming for someone with ADHD or autism. So
Yeah,
like making that system easier.
yeah, I also think I would like to direct it to all the neurodivergent young women and or older women who are struggling with that. I would like to say that always find the trusted person and tell about it. Don't
Oh yeah,
don't
get support.
be with it by yourself, because this is what we can tend to do.
Yeah.
Uh, to keep it to ourselves, to do not want to blame the predator. I think it's important, again, what we do, what many other people do, to raise the awareness of what ADHD and autism is, and
Mhm.
especially when it comes to this topic, to sort of for teachers to understand that when you have an autistic girl or a ADHD in class, take special care
Yeah,
when it comes to these topics for sex education, for the importance of consent, as you mentioned. And I hope that we will experience, on top of our unfortunate events that we had, we will experience a society where this is understood and the support needed is given.
I agree.
Yeah. Uh, there are organizations, I know you sent me the link, who help neurodivergent women with these topics. I think we should link them in our YouTube description.
Yes.
So anyone who watches this, who needs help, please don't be alone.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and this is like a different one, but yeah, the statistic that, kids with ADHD experience 20,000 more negative comments by the age of 12. And like you're so beaten down by the time you're a teenager or adult, like you will just unfortunately get used to toxic situations become the norm. You
Yeah,
do feel like you deserve it more.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, I feel like for autistic and ADHD women, my message would be to like trust yourself
mm,
because I feel like, yeah, it's looking back at the scenarios, like I guess college I was more exposed to um, dating, but yeah, like much I know I felt uncomfortable, but then I was like, it'd be rude not to go to his house if he's making me dinner. Um,
yeah.
because I wanted to be polite, you
I
know?
have, I have, films screening
Yeah,
in front of my eyes at the moment of so
yeah,
many situations like that. When you
yeah.
feel you don't want to disappoint the other person,
Yeah, you're
even
like,
though,
I have to be polite in this situation, even
yeah,
though I'm uncomfortable.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Elyse. This was a difficult one, but I hope it will help someone
yeah,
or at least raise the awareness. So check the links below if you want to contact me or Ellie. You have all the information in the description, and see you at the
yeah.
next video.